scheduled meeting of the Jenks City Council, Tuesday, December 15th, time is now 6 p.m. Please call roll, please.
Murray. Here. Isbell. Here. Box. Here. Dyke.
Here.
Caitlin.
Here. Here.
Mary Lee.
I'm in absentia tonight, folks. Sorry to miss. I'm waiting out. So I was around someone who had COVID diagnosis and let me know today. And so I'm just waiting it out at home. Don't want to ruin anybody's Christmas, but you all look great.
We'll move on to citizens' comments.
Wait, Pastor, are you here? No, I don't recognize you. No invocation.
No.
He didn't come. Is there anybody here who's a pastor?
There is.
Okay.
Greg. We do have a pastor that's here.
I'll acknowledge he's a pastor.
Would you care to, Mayor, Vice Mayor, can we do an invocation? We have a flag too, so let's hit the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you mind open up in prayer for us? Thank you.
I can introduce him. It's Reverend Pinkston from Life Church.
God, thank you so much for what this season represents. The sending of your son to save us from our sins. God, I pray that everything tonight comes out of our mouths honors you as we continue to serve you in the city. Thank you for everyone that's present, everyone who can't be here, God, that is impacted by COVID or any other disease. God, I pray for your healing hand over them and protection for all of us. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking around.
Thank you, Councilor Box.
Thank you.
Do we have any citizens' comments? Does anyone want to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll go to the city manager's report. Chris?
Mayor and all members of council, you have the weekly update in your packet. There's some additional items that I'll touch on. We continue to see very strong sales tax receipts. The month of December, we saw almost a 16% increase from the same month of the previous year for the sales, vision, and use tax. And fiscal year to date, we are up over 12% over last year for the first 6 months of the year. I sent out an email, I think last week, that continues to show the top 15 deposits all time. And the December deposit was number 9 on that list. And if you go back to that email at a later date, you'll see that basically every single one of the top 15 sales tax receipt checks that we've received has been either in 2020 or 2019. And I think part of that is possibly due to COVID over the last 8 months, with people staying at home and shopping in Jenks and eating in Jenks a lot more. But the other part of it is that we do have so many new businesses that have opened in the last 3 years that our sales tax receipts really are improving. And so Robert Salceda and I have been looking at where we are so far this year and what we budgeted for next year, trying to anticipate with the vaccine coming out and more people going back to work in Tulsa. We're trying to determine what we think the impact will be on sales tax receipts starting in July 1st of the next fiscal year. But we're confident they'll be strong, but we don't know that, that we may not be meeting the numbers that we're seeing this year. Luckily, I think we budgeted pretty conservatively in year 1 and year 2. And so we're very far ahead of what we budgeted for year 1. And I think we're even ahead of what we budgeted for year 2. So I don't know that we'll need to adjust the budget, but Robert and I are looking at that, and we'll most likely try to have our budget committee meetings sooner rather than later. I know last year, I think we had the budget committee meetings, I want to say in April or May, and our hope is that we can have those potentially even in March or April. And part of that is because we already have year 2, basically the budget committee and the city council's already vetted year 2, and we already have that set up. And so really the only thing that the budget committee or the city council will need to be looking at is, are there any changes we need to make in year 2? And we don't anticipate any major changes, but we're going to go through and speak with the departments, and then obviously with the budget committee. We do have an election in April, and so the hope is that we have an existing budget committee, and if we're ready, we just go ahead and meet with that budget committee in March And then the final budget would go to council still at the 1st of June, but hopefully we'll have that, that budget approved by the budget committee, maybe even 2 months ahead of the June meeting, so there'll be plenty of time to review and plenty of time if there happens to be a new counselor that gets elected. Well, that counselor will have time to go through the budget. So,
My only concern with that would be the first quarter numbers,
yeah, and
making it quite so soon.
yeah, and I think that from what we've seen, we're doing so well with sales tax that normally my concern would be, are we going to hit what we budgeted for sales tax revenue? And we've done so well on the city side that I think that we budgeted an increase for this year and an increase for next year. And we're doing so well this year, we're already ahead of where we would be with our increase next year. So I think, but that's something that I think we need to continue to talk through to decide when exactly, like what budget committee, will it be this council, as in everyone that was elected and terms run through April, or do we want to have, you know, a new budget committee tackle this after the election, which would essentially be after probably something like April 20th, once the new council is seated. So that's an ongoing discussion, but at least right now we're anticipating, hoping to have the budget ready to go and have a budget committee meeting with this existing council. So with the existing budget committee. And Councilor Isbell had a question about the sales tax receipts. And I think you would notice that February, usually February is one of the highest, if not the highest month in sales tax receipts. And the way to explain that is there's generally a lag. And so, Robert, you can correct me here, but so the January check would be for December, and it's largely an estimate. So the businesses estimate what they think their sales tax or what their revenue is going to be and what their sales tax they will owe, and they pay that. And then in February, the check reflects the estimate for January and the actual true up of what they estimated for December and what they actually brought in. And usually they estimate low. And so there's quite a bit of true up, and that's why the February checks, you wouldn't think of February as a month that there's much sales tax and it's a short month, but February is reflecting the true up from December and then the estimate for January. So there's
That's
always.
why I was saying the first quarter, because
Yeah.
I know it was runs 30, 60 days.
So there is a lag time with our collection. So what we see in December this month is the November estimate and then the true up from October. So are there any questions on the sales tax?
It's Valentine's month.
It is.
You guys.
You're already dressed for it. We were lucky, our partnership with Up With Trees that we've had for 2 or 3 years now, planting trees around town. We were recognized by the state agency, Keep Oklahoma Beautiful. We were awarded the state team builders with Up With Trees. And usually they have some big gala in Oklahoma City, but unfortunately the year we win, they couldn't have that and they had some virtual meeting, but we did win the award, and they had a board member come by with, I guess, the awards and a certificate. And we got some pictures with him, and then Up With Trees, their executive director, Steve Grantham, came by a couple of days later, and we got some pictures with him. So, I mean, it's fun. It's nice to be recognized statewide for our efforts in planting trees. And I know that we, continue to get compliments from residents on the street trees that we're planting. And so that's a great thing. Village on Main, they're completing their mixed use office and retail building that is right behind the Teachers Credit Union. And we just received the building permit for the final build out of Hatch, which is a breakfast and lunch restaurant. That'll be on the north cap of that building. And then above Hatch will be Sidecar, which is kind of an hors d'oeuvres bar, rooftop bar that will kind of overlook, it'll be above Hatch on the north end, it'll overlook the river and Riverwalk. So we have their building permits in, and they're starting the final build out of those. And I think that'll be a pretty neat addition to the community. I was, speaking of additions to the community, I was lucky enough to go tour the new Cape brewing facility that's in the Melody Lane development. That's on the south end cap. They're building out a stage and they have AstroTurf, an outdoor deck and patio. They're going to have food trucks. Josh's snow cone shack is going to have a new building. And I would invite, I'll do this on Councilor Lynn's behalf, but I would invite, any councilors that want to go see it. It really is a neat addition to Jenks. And I think Councilor Lynn would be more than happy to set up a tour. I think it'll be the first brewery in Jenks. So really, really a neat project. And Josh McFarland, who is really spearheaded that project, has a couple other projects that are nearby that I don't know, what he's willing to talk about publicly at the moment, but there's more to come, I think, over there near Melody Lane. So the low water dam, I know that's been a discussion or a topic of discussion. Tulsa had a deadline of December 31st, 2020 for full funding of that endowment in order for the dam to happen. And I guess that was a part of their ballot language. And the Tulsa City Council just extended that deadline to December 31st, 2022. I guess Tulsa's still hopeful that the Creek Nation might kick in $20 million to help fund the endowment. And so we have another 2 years to kind of figure out what is going on with that project, but there's really not much of an update beyond that there's an extension. And, I think I might have mentioned before, but we have, I think, $11 to $12 million set aside for the actual construction of the dam. We have another $3 or $4 million that's set aside for bank improvements. And so whether or not the dam ends up happening, we will be doing bank improvements along the river. But if the dam were not, for some reason not to happen, we have language it was in our ballot language that says that we can use that money for other infrastructure projects. So we're just kind of have another 2 years to wait and see, I suppose. The South Tulsa Jenks Bridge, one of the biggest barriers to the bridge kind of moving forward, I guess 10 to 15 years ago was there was specific legislative language that classified toll bridges as toll roads, and only certain public trusts in counties less than 500,000 people can build a toll road. And so Representative Sims is looking into potentially sponsoring legislation that would change some of those requirements, basically some of these details that would allow a South Tulsa toll road or toll bridge. And all of that hasn't been worked out yet, but when it is, we will update council, and we'll also be hopefully meeting with the city of Tulsa to discuss the legislation and discuss the potential for the bridge moving forward. And I think, as the vice mayor has brought up in the past, there's a potential that, if the bridge is on a trajectory where it can happen sooner rather than later, perhaps even the revenue from the bridge could be a backstop to help fund the endowment for the low water dam. But all of that is a pretty fluid situation. And then the last thing I have is you may have heard questions about people's water bills this month, and there's three pretty good explanations. The first is the billing cycle is usually the 5th through the 5th, and because we put about 8,000 new meters in the ground, we've had some issues with the billing cycle, and so this month's billing cycle was October 5th through November 20th for most people, and so that's an extra 15 days on their bill. So if I would expect most people would see an increase in their bill of some degree because you have an extra 2 weeks of usage. In addition to that, the 7% increase in water rates went into effect. And then in addition to that, the new meters that we put in the ground that we discussed through the budget process, they are more accurate. So a lot of people, I think he's not here, but I can give him as an example. Like if Bill Rogers' house was built 20 years ago, the meter in the ground is more than likely the meter that was put there 20 years ago when the house was built. And so those meters continually, they're analog, that'd be correct. And so they're basically years, and the years end up kind of wearing out, and they don't really register more water. They continue to register less and less and less, especially at low flow periods. So if you have a leak and it's slowly, and there's water slowly going through that meter, it may not be registering. And what we found is that there's a lot of people that had questions about their higher bill. And most of I'd say, I don't know where Walter is, but 95 to 98% of those people, when you explain the billing period's longer, the rate increase, it's kind of like, oh, this makes sense. My bill was, maybe 10% higher or 15% higher. But it's those instances where, I had a neighbor who had a bill that was usually $80 and it was $350. Well, that doesn't really make sense. And so we had, in those instances, we do have staff go out and inspect the meter and inspect anything that they can. And this gentleman had a plumber come out, and it turns out he has a leak, I think, in his irrigation system.
So I have a question, I'm sorry. So if it is that much more, would we be willing to send someone out? They don't have to automatically hire their own plumber?
No, we
will send somebody out to check it right off the bat.
That's great. I just know there's been a lot of discussion online, but I did hear of another person who theirs went up and they did find a leak, which the other meter hadn't shared with them.
Yeah.
And have we put anything out on social media about the water bills? Like the explanation for it? I mean, because there is a lot of chatter about the increase. I mean,
We've
just a
been trying
thought
to respond to
as they come in.
As they come in. And
We don't want to point out to them it's larger.
Well, I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword when because we posted about our water quality and we had comments and we try to respond. But, if council thinks that.
Well, I mean, you guys are the experts at that. I know that.
And it's not like it's just kind of opening up.
But it is what it is at this
It is
point.
what it
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
so at that point, they need our water, so.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's gonna be an influx at the very beginning anyway.
and I think,
So,
Walter, could you talk about I think we had a lot of calls. The bills went out Friday, a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago Friday, and we had a lot of calls Friday. And we had people posting. We try to, comment when we can.
Right.
On what, if we see what the situation is. And what I've seen even in my own neighborhood group is, if people are asking questions about the water bill, there's other people that are commenting the billing cycle is longer,
I've seen those, yeah.
So.
Okay.
I think it would be a good idea to post it due to the fact that it might help reduce some of the calls.
Well, and it just doesn't think, people don't
The
think we're
benefit
just
Also is the fact
upping
that
it for fun.
it could catch a leak. I mean, as far as, the automatic situation, as far as like if it's a sprinkler system or if there's some pipe or something like that. But if you explained it and was just, upfront and honest about it.
And that's what we do when they call, and
Right.
often,
But you could offset.
But it might save the calls
Right, that's what I'm
or
saying.
man up for the day they do call.
Right. So if they read it and they say, oh, well, that explains it.
what's the call volume situation? Right?
Call volume peaked about the first 3 days after the bills were received, and they've trickled down to where we're getting through all the work orders and they're
In hindsight,
Okay.
In hindsight, we would have had an insert in the bill that would have had listed this, and I think we might do that for the next bill that goes out.
I think that'd be great. That's a great idea.
Now, are these new, on the analog, you could look at the little triangle, I guess, and see it moving if your water usage. Are the new smart meters, do they have one where citizens can actually look and
Yes.
see? Is
Yes,
it,
you
this-
can, and it's actually got an alert register on it, so if it thinks you've got a leak, it'll show that as well. We can monitor that too. And in fact, as we're finalizing this, what we'll have is like a top 50 leak report that we pull off. And we'll actually try to be proactive about getting them fixed instead of sitting around and waiting for the, hey, I've got a pond in my front yard.
oh, good.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
And we've dealt with everybody who's called, anybody who had an issue, even if it made its way all the way to me, I made sure that we dealt with everybody. So everybody has been, as far as I can tell, has been satisfied.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of. I don't, did you have, were you?
Yeah, it didn't make it on the agenda. So our firefighters and officers are here for my request. Can we do a quick and then we can, before Gary starts on his entire show. Okay. Just want to let you guys know on December 5th, an older gentleman from Broken Arrow was driving down the road on 100 and on Elgin, right outside my house, had a medical event and subsequently crashed through my fence, and in all fairness, cut miraculously, actually, for all of you guys who are there. It's pretty much a miracle that it didn't smash into my pool, into the house, and do a lot of damage. Long story short, after calling 911 and for me personally trying to smash through the window of a Cadillac with a sledgehammer, which is almost impossible. You know, I want to say these guys came and responded to the event, and me personally, you can do a ride along with police officers if you want. You can see them, you know, pull people over and get tickets, and maybe if you're lucky, you can go spend time with firefighters and hang out in the kitchen and cook with them or do something. But it was actually very, very enlightening to me to actually be able to see our Jenks firefighters and our police officers work and in a real event right there in my backyard. And my son got to see it, my wife got to see it, and frankly, it's an experience that I really, really enjoyed watching, and it reminded me and it showed me how professional our people are. And as a retired military guy who misses that camaraderie of being in that environment and seeing that kind of teamwork in a contingency, or maybe even in combat, it was really inspiring for me to watch these guys work. It was very tough for me not to take pictures and record. I was trying to be cool because, you know, Watkins is there and he's all young and buff and built. And I'm trying to, not be the old guy who's taking pictures and all these things. But, you know, Captain Knoppel, did I pronounce it right? You know, was the on-scene, you know, senior ranking firefighter there. And I just watched these guys work. And I can't say how much I was truly impressed to see them do what they do best. And that's rescue and take care of a patient. And it instills a lot of pride in me to see that happen. If you guys drive by, you'll see a giant 45 to 50 foot section of my fence missing. And by the way, it's hard to get a fence contractor to do crap this time of year. So I've got a snowman there now guarding my property. But you know what? You can never, ever thank these folks enough for what they do. There's no amount of attaboys and pats on the back. There's just not enough. So, you know, I took it upon myself. I invited them here, and Chief, I appreciate you allowing them to come, and I don't want to keep them here any longer, but it's not enough for me to just say thank you, you guys. What I noticed at the very end is I had wood all over the place. My neighbor liked to describe it as he saw the fence just explode. And when it was all said and done and the patient was moved out of the way, my yard was a literal mess. You know what I saw Captain Knoppel do and all these guys? They started picking up my yard for about 35, 40 minutes, picking up my trash. And I don't think that that's what they're there for. And I think that's going above and beyond. And I think that's an expectation that I did not have. And I think I appreciate them for doing that. And I want to publicly acknowledge you guys for what you did. It's not enough. I can't take you out for a beer and I can't take you out for a burger, but I want you guys to go out and have one on me. So I wanted to give each of you this. Let me put this on, put you guys at rest, but I wanted to extend my personal thanks, and this is for my wife and I. And when George is open back up for business, I want you guys to go have a beer and a burger on me.
Is it closed right now?
I appreciate you all very much. On this. You get that to Captain.
I bet Chief can make sure they get there.
And will you get this? When you guys get a chance, I'm missing that. Oh, Richie, yeah, thank you very much. When you see these guys, you can never stop. Tell them how much we appreciate them, because on a day like that, you have no idea what it means to my wife to see my backyard cleaned up. And I know that's not what they're there for, but they acted like it was a part of their job, and I can't thank y'all enough, and I really appreciate it. It's much respect.
I was wondering why they were back there. I kept.
It was very nice.
Very nice. Thank you, Council.
7 more votes for you in April.
I'm not aware.
Okay. You want to do-
I'm just teasing
Oh,
you.
yeah, Jerry, do you have one?
Yes, I do.
You know me, I gotta get this in when I can for
Take
you.
my mask off so Kayleen can hear me. The mask off. The last meeting at NCOG was held November 10th. And I'm going to go over some of the items that were on the agenda. It was a month ago, so bear with me. Dr. Bruce Dart was there and gave an update from the City County Health Department with respect to COVID-19, the numbers, what was happening and everything at that point in time. The legislative report included the 2021 One Voice Regional Legislative Agenda, which you saw in the packet, and that was discussed. CTAG, the Coalition of Tulsa Area Governments, presented their 2021 legislative agenda. I've got that here, and they're wanting to initiate a clarification for Scrap Metal Dealers Act with respect to grouping definitions of materials and adding remote storage batteries, copper, brass, plumbing fixtures, etc. They also want to initiate bicycle safety improvements, which is very interesting to me. I'm going to read it word for word so I don't screw it up. Initiate comprehensive legislation to create a safer environment for people riding bicycles by allowing rolling stops, signaling right turns with the arm, prohibiting motor vehicle drivers from harassing, taunting, or maliciously throwing objects at or in the direction of persons riding bicycles. And it's beyond me. Beyond my comprehension that anybody would throw anything at someone riding a bike. Let me continue. And prohibiting inappropriate use of horns by drivers of motor vehicles. So that's going to be interesting legislation going forward. CTAG also wants to support these two items, public safety districts, which are multi-jurisdictional and investigate, what's the right term, millage to help pay for the salaries, the cross-representation, law enforcement, fire protection, public safety services, and emergency medical services. They also want to, they also are supporting potential changes to open meetings laws. And we're all familiar with what's going on. They want to modify the language in the Open Meeting Act to allow for virtual meetings permanently with respect to emergency situations. It does allow for virtual meetings, and in-person quorum is required, except for an emergency. But the act will allow for solely virtual meetings during a state of emergency, as I stated. That was the CTAG presentation. The Transportation Program, Selection of Projects for Federal Transit Administration, FTA Section 5310. They have funding available in the amount, NCOG has funding in the amount of $606,000 for eligible projects. There were 12 applications received, and I'm just going to read the name of those 12. The City of Tulsa Contract Services Mental Health Program, Kai Boys Area Transit, United Community Action Program, New League, Morton Comprehensive Health Services, Grand Gateway, Life Senior Services, New View, Oklahoma, The Spring, which is Day Spring Villa, the Bridges Foundation, City of Claremore, and NCOG administration costs. That was the funding for the FTA. The next agenda item was a Rural Economic Action Program, REAP. The Oklahoma Rural Economic Action Plan provides a source of funding for NCOG for local community development. Fiscal year 2020 funding to NCOG was $623,524. There were 39 projects proposed and submitted for over $1.7 million. The REAP Policy Committee will be going over those, prioritizing them, and distributing the $623,000. They appointed a nomination committee to help select the next NCOG officers. They're elected every other year, and they will be selected in the first quarter of next year. Let's see, the rest of the meeting was to discuss receivables and expenditures, bills paid. So are there any questions about INCOG and the agenda for our last meeting? The December meeting was canceled.
Gary, are the elected officers amongst the members like yourself that are attendees?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, on to business. Consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda. And we are pulling items G and H. Any motions?
Motion to approve the consent agenda with exceptions G and H.
I will second.
Murray,
Yes.
Isabel,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kalen,
Yes. Yes.
Ogier.
Yes. Consideration and appropriate action relating to items removed from the consent agenda. Item G, request to note in the minutes, Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ permit number SL 000072200774 for the construction of 7,961 linear feet of 8-inch PVC sanitary sewer line and all appurtenances to serve the Tory Lakes, Jenks, Tulsa County, Oklahoma.
Mayor, I had asked for these to be pulled so that one of the residents that backs up to the new Tory Lakes has been working with the city, and the city engineer has been in communication with them on looking at the stuff and is actually responding to them with a letter at the end of this week. And I thought it might be only fair for this to either be tabled or to allow the resident to come and speak before he has a chance for the response from the city engineer. Mr. Pinkston?
Yes, please.
And the H is going to follow along with it, so I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
Incorporate both at the
Please
same
just state
time.
your name and your address.
I'm Greg Pinkston. We live at 2701 East 138th Place South in Bixby, which is technically it's a building permit over in Jenks. And so there's a public comment that we submitted in the packets, I'm sure. And so I don't want to read through that entire thing. Just tell you kind of where we're coming from. It's been going on since April. Our concern is not to stop CNC from building. When we bought that land, we knew this is what cities do. They grow, they build. We're great with that. However, our concern is that the development that's happening is going to create more drainage through our property than currently is going on. And we believe that the plans that were submitted by CNC overstate what's currently coming through our property, which means that they'll be able to push water through, saying, well, that's what's always been there. But our experience is that hasn't always been there. So we've had 3 engineers currently look at it. We have an engineer in the family, which that helps out. But we had 2 independent engineers in our family also concur with them and say, yeah, you're going to have water coming over that berm. You're going to have water coming out of the easement that we've been told by the city isn't going to happen. And so my concern isn't to stop construction. It is not to do anything like that. But basically, I would much rather have an ounce of prevention than a pound of cure. And whatever we can do before this construction takes place to prevent the problem is a much better solution to me than trying to come back on the other side of it after we've got water coming through our yard, draining into our pool, all of that to say, oops, now we got to fix that. The city has to fix that. So that's why we're asking to hold up until we have an opportunity to work with the city a little bit more to come up with a great solution that's a win for CNC and a win for us.
We actually don't have the recent, if it's a recent letter you've submitted.
Yep, we submitted it, I believe, yesterday or today.
Okay, can you read it to
I
us?
certainly can.
Thank you.
I did just, sorry guys, I just emailed it to all of you, so you will have a copy.
Okay,
Go ahead and read it.
yeah, is that okay with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Please.
Thank you. We respectfully submit the following request to the Jenks City Council concerning the above listed December 15th, 2020 city council agenda items related to Tory Lakes, Jenks, Tulsa County, Oklahoma. We currently have a pending request to the City of Jenks engineering staff regarding Tory Lakes drainage, concerns that we believe will adversely affect our property. We've been informed by the City of Jenks engineering staff that they will respond to our request by Friday, December 18th, 2020. We request that the City of Jenks Council table the above agenda items G and H, until we receive this response from the City of Jenks engineering staff. We've made 6 formal communications with the City of Jenks since April 8th, 2020, regarding our Tory Lakes drainage concerns. From April 2020 through this comment today, we've submitted our drainage concerns in the form of public comments to the Jenks Planning Commission and the Jenks City Council, email communication to the City of Jenks, and an on-site meeting on our property with the City of Jenks. Despite our continued communication of our concerns, we have not received any communication or response from the city regarding this issue other than notated responses by Ms. Marcia Hilton and Mr. Chris Robinson in the Jenks City Council staff report prepared by Ms. Marcia Hilton to the Planning Commission as an attachment to the May 7th, 2020 Planning Commission agenda, and also the May 19th, 2020 Jenks City Council agenda. The following comments were submitted as a response to our concerns. From Marcia Hilton, it is unlawful to cause adverse impact to surrounding properties. The engineer of record conducts modeling to understand post and pre-construction discharge rates, or plainly speaking, where a drop of water on the property goes presently and where it will go following development. Chris Robinson, his comment is the engineers must show that the proposed layout and pond layout will equal or reduce runoff from 1 year to 100-year storms, at least 1 foot freeboard above 100-year storm. This absence of communication is certainly concerning to us, given that the City of Jenks Ordinance 1206 outlines the responsibility of the City of Jenks to represent and protect the best interests of its citizens. Up until this point, we've instilled our trust in the City of Jenks to represent and protect our best interests. We now believe that our best interest has not been represented and protected by the city, and that the City of Jenks is allowing development to occur that will result in an adverse impact to our property. On December 13th, 2020, we sent the City of Jenks engineering staff a request to provide a written response that addresses each of our drainage concerns, along with the solutions that the city has required CNC development group for Tory Lakes to implement to prevent any adverse impact to our property. In the email, we provided the city a 4-page document detailing our concerns, the support for our concerns, and the requested solution. These are the same concerns that we provided to the city during our October 2nd on-site meeting, and again in a follow-up email on October 3rd, 2020. We've been informed by the city that a response will be provided to us by Friday, December 18th. From the onset of our communication with the City of Jenks in April 2020, our intent and hope has been to work jointly with the City of Jenks and CNC Development Group to reach a solution to the drainage impact of Tory Lakes development, and that this resolution be mutually beneficial to all parties. Our intent remains the same. We would appreciate your consideration, or the consideration of the council, in tabling the above agenda items until this response has been received. Thank you.
And that was part of my main reason of asking to pull it, so that he could at least discuss it. I know that Mr. Coyle was going to respond, and if we can table it until the next meeting or until they've had a chance to do their communication, then I would make a motion that we are able to table it if that's well.
The only issue with these 2 items is it's not related to the stormwater, it's related to sanitary sewer and the potable water, so the water lines and the sewer lines. And this is just reading into the minutes that DEQ has approved the plans for the sewer line and has approved the plans for the water line. So I would propose that, we have the city engineer here. I believe that you guys have met. I think, there was some maybe miscommunication with Chris Robinson leaving and us having a new city engineer on board. And we've heard the concern, and I think that Mr. Cloyd is more than willing to work with you and CNC development to try to find a solution. I would just kind of say that these items are relatively unrelated to the specific item of stormwater, and we're just reading into the minutes that we do have a permit from DEQ for the water lines and the sewer lines. And I would say if we could go ahead and approve these items, but obviously this is on the record now that this is an issue that we will be working with you on. So my hope would be that we could go ahead and maybe approve these items, but obviously we'll continue to work with you on this issue.
Well, can we go ahead and set some kind of meeting?
Yeah, how do we follow up with that to make sure it happens?
Chris, what is the status of
I just want to basically written up, getting people on
feedback?
I've got the letter basically written, I'm just waiting for a few people to provide their feedback on the contents, and so it will definitely go by this Friday.
Yeah, I mean, that was the deadline for the email was
Right.
the 18th, and
But did we actually arrange to sit down with them to talk about it, to go through the letter that you provided so that they can discuss their concerns?
Yeah, they can. I've read their concerns. I've read they.
No, I know, but it's just,
provided-
it's good for communication purposes so that everybody understands what is actually the issue. So we're not shooting emails back and forth, we can actually discuss it and work it out. Can we do that?
With the residents.
But that would be good with you,
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd definitely
Kinsey.
be open to that. That would help.
Can you get in the plan with them?
Yes,
So now that it's in the minutes, will we do anything on our side to make sure it's followed up? Because it has been since April and I remember the concerns. And so that, how do we, just let us know if it doesn't work out. How's that?
I think at this point, they're gonna have a meeting, and I think our staff will probably
Okay.
take care of it.
Great.
So Chris, are you saying items G and H have nothing to do with stormwater runoff?
G and H are just noting in the minutes that DEQ
Right.
has approved the sanitary sewer line plans and the plans for the water, for the actual water that will be used in the houses. So, you know,
Okay.
the pipes for that.
Yeah, for this.
And, yeah, and we're required to read, you know, that's right in the consent agenda. It's just, it's pretty, we applied, or they applied for a permit. We have to read it into the minutes. And it's not related to the stormwater, but I did think it was a good opportunity to hear from Mr. Pinson.
Is that good, Mr. Pinkston? I mean, because when I visited with him, I saw Tory Lakes and I'm like, okay, then, yeah, well, I've got to make sure that it's discussed.
Yeah.
And that's why I called you to talk to you, to make sure he could come in. I didn't want him coming in
Yeah.
and speaking if it wasn't right, but
I think
if
it's
this is
certainly
just,
worthwhile.
yeah,
So if we can get a meeting between everybody and sit down
That's
and
good.
discuss it and work it out, I think that's better.
And there will be more to approve on Tory Lakes down the road, correct? Okay.
Well, then I will pull my recommendation to table.
Well, you just want to make a motion now?
Then we'll, I'd make a motion, we go ahead and then approve this as being on the fact that it's dealing with water, the sewer lines, and it's not what he and Mr. Coyle are going to be doing more discussion on.
So items G and H? You make a motion on G and H?
Yes, motion G and H to approve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you for the invitation as well. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Isabel?
Yes.
Box?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Ojai?
Yes. Okay, item 3, request to approve minor amendment to PUD 108 to increase the allowable entry sign display area and general location south of 111th and east of Elwood. Ms. Phillips? Yes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council, and staff. This item is part of the final plat for Hickory Creek, which you just approved through the consent agenda. Thank you for that. They are asking for an amendment to PUD 108. And essentially, if you look on page 184 of your packet, as a look at a planning data there, and there has been no public comment, and it states that minor amendment and plats are not advertised. Plats are a technical process, which I think we all understand that. And this is a residential development currently under construction. The applicant brought in, Mr. Wallace is present this evening, as well as Eric Enyart from Tanner. And they are asking to enlarge the sign at the entry. What I love about Mr. Wallace's plan, this is a gated subdivision, and they have lost one lot, but they've gained an amazing entry feature that's got a shelter for the children to sit under during weather that's too hot, too wet, too cold, whatever. I think that's incredible. And also, if you're a senior, you were able to walk up there, and who knows, as we move through COVID, how things may change. That might be the perfect spot to pick up your food that's being delivered. But at this time, they're asking for an amendment, and in the middle of the page, it says sign display area. So previously, the sign area was 35 square feet and 15 feet high, and they're currently asking for 150 feet. It's not necessarily going to be that big, and I know it sounds huge, but when you look in context to how far it is off the road and the enormous amount of landscaping that they're adding, Planning Commission was really excited about the features. So let me continue here. At the bottom of page 184, you'll see what the original PUD stated, and that is in a box where it says General Development Standards. On the top of page 185, it shows you what they are asking for, and that is the amendment. If you continue down the page, I've included a zoning map with the general area. This is located east of Elwood and south of 111th Street. If you look on page 186, it talks a little bit again, and there are two primary requests: a larger identification sign, and then of course they have realigned the entrance to allow for a convenient turnaround for buses and other large vehicles to create shelter for residents, and they're adding a significant amount of landscaping. So staff, Planning Commission, and TAC recommend approval of the final plat with conditions. One, meet all the requirements of engineering. And as you know, this is a standard, as we're going through the process on Tory Lakes, it's the same thing. They will submit their engineering plans. They'll be reviewed by the city engineer. They'll work directly with the engineer of record to get all that established. Meet the requirements of the approved PUD 108 and the minor amendment. Add addresses to the piece of the plat. And note on page 3 about the minor amendment sign approval and provide a copy of the filed amendment to the plat to the city of Jenks. So on page 187, I have 2 exhibits there. Figure 5 is a comparison of the final plat, which is the one on the left, and it shows the block 10 has 2 lots now, where it previously had 1. And then on the right side, you'll see the preliminary plat, and you can kind of see how they've reworked it. If you continue in your packet, on page 188, I included a beautiful rendering of what they expect this to look like. This is an incredible improvement, and I'm seriously considering making this a part of the Unified Development Ordinance to enhance all new subdivisions.
Beautiful.
That's all the developers.
If you can get away with it, yeah. How many houses would that be?
Right. So on page 190, you see the general layout, and you see the redesign that's right here in this area. I'm really thrilled that Mr. Wallace was willing to think out of the box and really come to the Planning Commission and Council with something very unique and an outstanding product. You continue in the information that I provided. I think he has a little bit more information. If you want to pass it out, you can, Mr. Wallace. And then page 194 starts the actual amendment, and it is exactly what I've already put in there. Eric Enyart did provide a little background. It's about 44 acres, 119 lots. They have a really nice reserve area that connects to the trails here in the city of Jenks. So the PUD is already approved. The plat is already approved, and in lieu of the increase in landscaping and the new entry design, Planning Commission and staff did not find any issue with approving the larger entry sign. Thank you, Eric. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them, or Mr. Enyart or Mr. Wallace is also available to answer questions.
Mr. Wallace, is this a one-time request, do you think, or is this kind of going to be your new design thing going forward for signage? Absolutely.
Moving mask, okay?
Yes.
If you want, I'll put mine on that one too.
I feel very safe.
each site is so specific as to what can be done at the entry. As an example, we could not have done this type of entry at Elgin Estates. If Oak Ridge was gated, it would have been difficult. If Jenks, which is gated, it would have been difficult to do this type of entry. And when I was before City Council several years ago, talking about this subdivision, there was a lot of discussion about the stacking of the Elwood. As I've been out there over the past year plus at Elgin's property, it just became painfully obvious that kids standing out on Elwood did not seem to make sense. Nor did 3 landscaping trucks pulling up and a 3rd one blocking the Elwood seem to make sense. So in this case, we were able to lose a lot and expand the entry. And it would depend upon the width on a go-forward basis if we do the same thing. I would love to make this somewhat of a signature of my subdivisions personally. It is extremely expensive. So the price point of the lots would have to be such that they could accommodate this type of entry. With regards to the sign, I think maybe your question is twofold about the gates and the entry, the bus stop, and the sign. The sign, if you look at it on the other handouts, is in scale with the overall project. And it's located 137 feet off the street. So by the time we kind of put big berms around it and landscape it, the additional few feet in height and width, I don't think we can be noticeable. So on a go-forward basis, do I see wanting to do this big a sign at my entries? Probably not, because more typical, the sign is up near the street. This one's pushed so far back, even make it readable on a drive-by, it needs to be larger.
And it's one-sided and it does parallel the road and faces due west, right?
Correct. All of the above. It'll be a metal sign, it'll be computer etched. Yeah. So I think it'll be very tasteful. And it may, as Marseille said, it may not be that large in real world, but that's the way it was drawn by the landscape architect. So that's the way we'd like to have you consider improving it. And if we feel we can make it smaller, we will.
Is this for sales and marketing purposes or is this permanent?
Permanent. It's permanent.
It's a permanent sign.
The temporary sign for marketing is already at the entry.
And that face, that's perpendicular to the road?
Correct.
Okay. I don't get by there very often.
You
since
can't
it's a
get there
road.
from your house. You have to go 4 miles out of the way.
Well, I keep going down to turn into Churchill for a shortcut and I always forget and I end up slamming on my brakes. But I don't quite make it back down that far quite yet.
And do the buses not normally run through gated communities? Is that,
They do not.
Okay.
In the case of Elgin Estates, they just sit
Okay.
on Elgin Street.
all right,
Kids run around, dodge the cars and get the bus.
okay.
So I think, this was 80% for kids,
Mhm.
20% for traffic not being impeded on.
I appreciate that.
And it does going to set the tone for the subdivision.
It'll be very nice.
In all fairness, was this one of your most troubled lots with the pump jack and everything there? Or,
Beyond trouble.
okay.
I'm assuming some of these trees will be covering that.
They
Big
will.
well.
I think the trees are very generous in size
Mhm.
on these renderings.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to buy trees that large, but we'll certainly be looking smaller.
In a couple years.
But to answer your question with the challenges we have with the Corps of Engineers on this project.
Yeah.
Plus the multiple oil wells that we dealt with, it has been quite a challenge. I had hair before we started. The finished product is going to be, I think, exceptional. And I'd answer any questions that you've got about the subdivision, because obviously we're hoping that you will approve the final plat.
So I don't have any questions, but I'll tell you this, we know you've taken a pretty good beating on this project and if this rendering is anything like what's going to be, I agree with Marseille, this is truly fantastic. This is an amenity that I don't think you see anywhere in Jenks. Much higher price, much higher price points. This is absolutely, to me, this is even at this price point, it sets the bar really, really high. And I hope, despite the financial loss of giving up a lot, I think generally speaking, I appreciate you for doing the right thing. This is, I'm not voting right now on this, but this is fantastic looking and it's a great idea. And if we're around long enough, we may help you support that. Maybe not as a code thing, but a general best practice for developers and for all those that you talk to. You go back and tell them that. I don't speak for all of them, but I really like this. I hope they do as well, because this is something that if we get a chance to continue to serve, and we're looking at the the neighborhoods and plats going forward will always remember this as a development standard, and hoping that developers will continue to do the right thing for the community, because this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike, along with this, and where are you at on the MOSH or the, I guess, where? Mitigation,
We
yes.
should remove the equipment from Hickory Creek to the site probably before the end of the year.
This,
We've got 3 months behind where we thought.
Yeah,
we'd be
okay.
on the mitigation. That work, I can't see that not being completed by the end of March, weather permitting.
okay, good.
We'll be meeting with the city to firm up exactly how we implement the mitigation plan. So by next spring at the latest.
No, I hadn't seen anything activity, and I didn't know what kind of where you are with that. And I know this is just fantastic looking, and that you had offered to, because of the mitigation here, you're going to move it over to off of Elm, and I just was curious where's that. So thank you very much.
Well, and I believe the city either has employed or is looking to employ somebody to do some type of master plan for prairie, what we're going to call that, prairie trails. Some name to be determined. So we've somewhat drug our feet, wanting to be sure that what we do does fit in.
Right.
with the
Fits in,
total
sure.
concepts. Having said that, what we're going to do can be done, and the rest of the park can be added.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense. Thank you.
I've been following your work the last 20 years, and everything you do is in the best interest of the city and the people in the city, so I'm behind you 100%.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm fortunate to be able to develop in our community.
When do you think you'll start building?
Hopefully in March, late March, maybe early April, we're going to get building permits. The builders would love to start now, even on dirt streets, because it ends up meaning that they already have
Right.
prospective buyers.
Could you have them finish out my neighborhood first?
I think Shaw's almost done.
No, they're all across the street from me. It's all gonna happen at once. It's okay.
Any questions about Hickory Creek that I can answer? We have had our lot draw, all 119 lots are spoken for.
Oh, wow.
For 7 builders.
So you have a lot more builders.
Any citizens' comments? Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Any motions?
Motion to approve?
Absolutely second.
Ready? Yes.
Isabel?
Yes.
Box?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Caitlin? Ojek?
Yes. Item number 4, request to approve resolution number 723, requesting the Indian Nations Council of Governments program Tulsa Urbanized Area Transportation Funds for consideration of funding in federal fiscal year 2019-2021 for construction of the 121st Street Trail, Elm Street to Elwood Avenue. Mr. Floyd.
Vice Mayor, City Councilors, I'm going to talk about items 4 and 5 because they kind of go together. They're separate resolutions though. I don't know if you're familiar with the TAP program or the Transportation Alternative Program, but I'll give you a little bit of background about what that is. A new round of federal funding under the Transportation Alternative Program, or TAP, has been opened by application by INCOG. This is federal funding that provides for various transportation-related improvements for municipalities. Each project application has a requirement that a minimum of 20% of that total project should be funded by the municipality. But the city funding is not a part of the application for the funding is not part of today's agenda. We'll present that if we get approved on the applications that have been made. The 2 projects that we've selected for this program are the 121st Street Trail and the Elwood Avenue Trail. Each of those, you can see a lot more detail within the material that's provided about each project. The 121st Street Trail, it would be from Elm Street to Elwood Avenue. And then on the Elwood Avenue Trail, it would go from 111th to 121st Street to add some more pedestrian passageways along our arterial streets. One of the items required on the application is a resolution by the governing body and signed by the chief executive indicating support for the project and commitment to ongoing project maintenance. and matching funds. The applications for both projects were submitted to INCOG by the deadline, which was November 20th. So we did that, anticipating council approval of the resolutions, which are due to INCOG by January 15th. So the agenda items 4 and 5 are for each resolution separately. So staff requests approval of resolution 723 and 724, requesting the Indian Nations Council of Governments to program the Tulsa Urbanized Area Transportation Funds for consideration of funding in the federal fiscal year 2019 to 2021 for construction of the 121st Street Trail and the Elwood Avenue Trail respectively. Are there any questions?
How does this differ from what we currently have on a, nope, nothing. I'm a mile off. But I do have a question because I have played devil's advocate. So what if we didn't approve it and it's already been submitted?
Then they would probably reject our application because
Okay.
it's not complete.
So then you just go after the fact and say we've approved it, and that's the resolution you're talking about. Okay, thank you.
And this will run parallel to 121st.
Yes, it's within our existing right of way, so we're not going to be acquiring land for either one of the trails.
Now, will this have any effect with, I know the county has talked about widening 121st at some point. Who knows when? Is this going to have an effect on having to come back and then tear up some of the stuff that money's been spent on?
That's a good question because we're still trying to get plans from the county on what they're trying to put in there, but we're going to try to design it so that there isn't a conflict.
Yeah, and so from Elwood east, that's all city of Jenks, but the county has jurisdiction west.
Back to 75?
Yeah, because Jenks is on the north and Glenpool's on the south, but once you get east of Elwood on 121st, it's Jenks on the south and the north. We don't have, there's nothing, no concrete plans at the moment for us to widen 121st in between Elm and Elwood. I know that may be a future project and that's on our capital improvement list related to just engineering, but I don't see anything happening there within the next 5 years in terms of construction. And I think that the goal would be if you drive down 121st and look north, I mean, there is significant right of way between the road and say Churchill or some of the other subdivisions to the east. And I think that the trail can be designed in a way that there'll still be plenty of room, even if 121st is expanded at some
It'll be
point.
closer.
Yeah.
And will we take it into consideration when we're designing, like when we're doing our, our designing and investigation into the Elwood extension, the widening? Did that sentence
Yes.
make any sense whatsoever?
These two projects, the trail on Elwood and the trail on 121st, are things that we've been saying. I mean, part of kind of the vision that we've had for the last 5 to 10 years is to have trails on every single, what we call arterials.
Right.
Elm, Elwood, 121st, 111th Street. And so we're down to 121st and obviously now Elwood. So we plan to do this regardless of whether, we can get these funds, but the engineering department says, hey, we have these funds available. Let's try to get them.
Sure.
But we do have the funding for the engineering of Elwood.
That's the
which will
term.
be 121st and 111th, and then I believe 96th to 91st. And so we would plan, this project would be a part of that.
Okay.
In terms of improvements to Elwood. If we were to receive the funding, regardless, it's going to be a part of
Okay.
improvements.
We just pay for that section.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
So the lightage at 121st and Elwood that still is on the horizon with the county, that's still not going to have any effect on us on something like this. And
No.
Planning on the intersection from Elwood to I-75 is the widening that the county's going to be doing, plus that intersection.
Yes, which will
I
be
think what
improved.
we're talking about is with our trails leading up to that intersection, it's not going to have any kind of conflict, or where if we get the funding for it, then we're not going to be tearing those out and then into process.
No.
Okay.
No, that easement, we have an enormous amount of space on the long
Yeah,
stretch.
it's a big intersection. I'm with you guys.
Mhm.
You were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, any motions?
Motion approved.
Together or separately?
Separate.
Yeah, I'll make the motion on approval for item number 4.
And I'll second that one.
Murray,
Yes?
Isbell, Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kalen, Ocean.
Yes. Item 5, request to approve resolution number 724, requesting the Indian Nations Council of Governments program Tulsa Urbanized Area Transportation Funds for consideration of funding in federal fiscal year 2019-2021 for construction of the Elwood Avenue Trail, 111th Street to 121st Street.
If there are no questions, I'll make the motion to approve item number 5.
Second?
Murray,
Yes?
Isbell,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kalen,
Yes.
Ocean.
Yes. Item 6, request to approve resolution number 725, authorizing the acquisition of property for the widening of South Elm Street, 111th to 131st Street, including easements, deeds, and the settlement of claims related to the acquisition of property. You will run this in Ellen.
I am not Mr. Carr.
I totally.
Oh,
Could not be here. So Vice Mayor, members of council, this resolution relates to the widening of Elm Street. And it finds that the 21 parcels that our engineer has identified that are necessary to acquire are necessary for this widening process, and then it approves the city manager staff to negotiate these purchases, ideally, hopefully purchases of these property. In some ways, this is a formality. You've already approved the contract with Universal Field Services, who acts as our agent for acquiring these properties. And they're already out there working, and Chris Robinson kind of got the ball rolling before he left, but after he left, and Chris Floyd and I and Robert Carr looked at this process, we realized this is an important formality because we want to know that we have your blessing to acquire this property, as particularly if later down the road we have to come to you and seek a condemnation. And also, we needed to establish the process for this. I don't think any of you have ever seen a resolution like that. And that's because in recent years, any property acquisition, we've been in a project with ODOT, and ODOT has done this end of it. We've really just sent them a pot of money and kind of signed on the dotted line. And so this one, we are controlling, we are negotiating with Universal Field Service helping us out. So that's why we have this resolution.
if I can ask a question along that line, and it may not be pertaining to this, but the gas line work that was done right in front of First Baptist Church and stuff, is that part of the widening? Was that preparation for the widening?
Yeah, my understanding is yes.
Putting the additional casing in where my understanding was there's casing underneath the road, but it extends, and now that the road will be extended, there was work that needs to be
So they
done.
did all the work and then had to come back and tear up some of it to reduce or to do additional, but yeah, well, what I was getting at, it looks like, now, are there gas lines under there? Because one of those pipes is laying over sideways.
There's a lot of lines.
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, there are we had 3 running through our backyard in Churchill right there.
Yeah.
You can see them, they've got the
Yeah.
markers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of them, several are straight up, but one of them is leaning over, and I don't know if that's something that somebody needs to be aware of or should be made aware of,
The
or
gas company would be.
Pass it on.
Not until it's coming out.
until the gas starts coming out. Okay, never mind. I just thought I'd ask.
The marker itself should have an 800 number on it to call, and they'll dispatch somebody immediately or next business day, depending on the case. I found a marker, and I can't remember which one it's Churchill, that when I would do my police ride along.
Could you take that off?
Sorry. When I did ride along with the Kings Police Department, I noticed one of the Magellan markers was down in Churchill. And I stopped, I looked at it, I called the number, and they dispatched somebody the next business day because it was the marker that was down, not a leak or anything.
Right.
The car had hit it, you could see the tire marks and everything. But if you want me to, I can call it in as well. I can.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those white pipes that
Yeah.
sticks up with a bunch of striping on it, and it's laying kind of sideways, and I didn't know if they're supposed to do that or not. So anyway, I brought it to city council's attention.
I'll drive out there. And
It's on the side of First Baptist Church, but it's at that house that the church bought.
Okay.
How about you drive out there? All right, we'll hold it. and you smash it down with a hammer.
Get a lighter out and see. Okay.
Are you talking about a gas line marker?
Yeah,
It's a pipe. It looks like it's one of the pipes there's like 4 or 5 there, and one of them is laying or is kind of leaning over from where they did all this work.
What color is it, Craig?
It's white and it's got some stripes on it, I want to say.
If you're walking out of the church, is it slightly to your, is it to this?
Yeah, it's to the south. It's kind of by the house that the church bought.
Yeah.
It's on the east side of the road.
Yeah.
And so I just thought I would bring it up. I know it's not necessarily in line with what we're talking about, but we're talking about elm and widening and stuff, and I thought I'd bring it up. So just.
I'll take care of it.
Well,
If it's Magellan, of course.
it's not. He's gonna walk you to drive on by.
If it's not, just forget about it. Who cares? It's just a gas.
I have one of those markers, so I know what you're talking about, right across the street from me.
Okay. No, okay, thank you.
Or feed that to the counselors.
I'll take it.
And it's like, the
Just
only one
duly
who doesn't
noted.
drive that direction.
Do I take a long way?
There is no long way around, that is.
Yeah.
1-800 Isabel.
Okay, sorry, Teresa.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, any motions?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Murray,
Yes.
Isabel,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Caitlin, Ogier.
Yes. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Actually, before you do, share a public comment. Had an interesting conversation with a Jenks business owner today who has chosen to shut his business down, not because the employees have COVID, because his people that patronize the business, which happens to be a bar, got into a fight, both verbally and physically, over the wearing a mask in the business. So I forgot this. I was thinking about saying these comments because I thought we would be online and maybe we'd have more citizens engaged, but pretty heated discussion. Very disappointed that some other Jenks businesses on Main Street don't appear to be following distancing and spacing of tables and different things, and made the decision to shut his business down, not because he had to, just because frankly, the guy just seemed to be kind of fed up and needed some time to kind of let the situation cool off. Apparently, some folks came into the bar wearing masks and chose to pick a verbal altercation, which escalated for people who were sitting in a bar not wearing masks. So I don't know if you guys have figured this out yet, but I have. Even as an elected official, you know what I've come to learn? I don't think people give a damn about our opinions. So for all the Facebook warriors out there who do nothing but spread bad news and gloom and doom every day about COVID-19, I would remind you all, it's about to be Christmas. And really nobody cares about the opinions of non-experts, and there's nobody in this room who is an expert on COVID-19. So as you guys as elected leaders and as city officials and staff members, man, I just wish the world would take a break from talking about COVID-19 and focus on the fact that Jesus got a birthday coming up, and that should be good news. And when you get the opportunity to perpetrate and reply to all and do all these things, whether it's on Nextdoor or Facebook, I would hope we could lead by example for just a couple of weeks and let this go. It's shocking to me that people would attempt to assault each other verbally and physically on Main Street in Jenks because people aren't doing what somebody else thinks they should be doing. So as leaders and as fire chiefs and as police chiefs and as city attorneys and all of us who are in leadership and for members of the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, I hope we all know, whenever we can, and despite the fact that I think it's just our opinions, I hope we can all do what we can to kind of quelch some of these flames that seem to be kind of growing with some of these Facebook pages that are evolving and getting new members all the time. And it seems like all they do is kind of stoke the flame a little bit. And I get it. And that's what they want to do all day long with, maybe they don't have a job or whatever the case may be, but it was a very real conversation and quite shocking to walk into George's and have the guy say, I don't want to be open. after what I saw, and to have all his patrons removed and ask them to leave because of the way they were treating each other. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was happening here in Jenks, but
It's disappointing.
yeah, it really is. It really is. And so asking all of us as community leaders to do what we can to share some positivity and not jump on the negative bandwagon just for a couple of weeks. And come January, we can start getting right back into the same shithole world that we're in right now. We can start all over again. Amen.
That's gonna have asterisks over that word, just so you know, in closed caption.
Not to discount what you said. I heard a story. The same type of altercation happened in a church in St. Ernest. So let's expand that beyond our businesses and carry it with us through our daily lives.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
Thank you
church.
for bringing it up.
Thank you for indulging me for a moment.
Absolutely. Any motions to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Murray,
Yes.
Isabel, Cox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin, OJ.
Yes.
And thank you for
Okay, we now call to order the Jenks Public Works Authority scheduled meeting and Tuesday, December 15th, 2020.
Murray,
Here.
Isabel,
here.
Cox,
Here.
Dyke,
Here.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Here,
Shirley.
and we'll go to the general
Still
manager.
an abstention.
And still here.
Who said that?
Chair and all members of the authority, you have the engineering projects weekly update in your report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move to the monthly chamber report. Mr. Driscoll.
Members of the authority, the great and powerful Oz, it's a pleasure to be here in person this evening.
Been waiting all night to say that.
You guys were chatting earlier. And
I could see you was tinkering with that in your head.
I was writing it down just to make sure. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. You've got your monthly report. I want to hit a couple of things in here and then mention a few others. We've been in continuing conversations with the Small Business Development Center about ways we can partner together to further strengthen our existing and future businesses in Jenks. So we're continuing that conversation in ways we can partner some of the resources they've got. So we anticipate seeing more development and more partnership with that organization as we move forward. So we're certainly enjoying that. They've been very easy to work with and very accessible. Another group we've been working with is Workforce Tulsa. We reached out to them last month and had some great conversations about a number of programs. I don't know how many people here are actually familiar with their work. I've been around them for 10 years and only within the last year I've gotten really familiar with what they do. But they have a lot of great partnerships for businesses, from retail to marketing, professional services, industrial. We may wind up partnering with them on some of their internship programs, their job placement work. So it's a really great resource that we're beginning to roll out the first quarter of next year, some direct marketing to businesses about some of the resources that both the SBDC and the Workforce Tulsa offer. We held our lights on ceremony November 19th, great night, good weather. Councilor Murray was there. I think there's a picture of us on Facebook floating around somewhere. But we had a great evening. I think we had 1,250 to 1,500 people there, which far surpassed my expectations during COVID, but outdoors, great turnout, great lights. I do want to thank Public Works again. I think they're often overlooked, but they've done a phenomenal job working in downtown in some very, very challenging situations, not just related to street sweeping. I do want to point out Robert Hammerman, Chris can probably speak to this more than I could, came in after working all day, came in on a night shift to remove leaf removal in downtown. So if you see Robert, give him a big pat on the back and let him know we appreciate it.
When was that done?
About the same time you probably heard a complaint.
By the way, is that done routinely or is it done as a
2 times a month.
twice a month?
The street sweeping.
And that
It's tough
actually
because
sucks up the leaves or does it blow them somewhere?
It sucks, it should be sucking up the leaves, and then they also go around with leaf blowers. Now we have some people who want us to do it more often, and then we have other merchants who don't ever want us to be doing it because they say that it blows stuff into the air, so. But I know that you received many emails about picking up leaves.
I go to, twice a month when I walk Main Street for coffee in the morning, and my wife and I all walk up and down and say hi. I'm kind of hearing it all the time. Why do we blow the leaves? Where are we blowing them to?
Pile.
To pick up.
Okay, so they're all mulched and taken away.
I will tell you, a couple of business owners have been great about helping. I've gone out with Sherry Bonner at the Pink Lily multiple times, and we swept up trash, picked up trash on Main Street. So if, businesses are interested, I'll be glad to, much like Robert Amberman, come in after hours, and we're more than happy to help pick up trash and do what we can to beautify Main Street. So I would encourage everyone to, you can sweep in front of your store, you can pick up your trash. It's, a little bit we can do. We do it at our place, so it's certainly something people can do. But Lights On went well. Travis Meyer, we were able to create a COVID-safe bubble on Main Street to get in there. It was one of the more challenging years to get this event pulled off. We were very happy with it. We got news late last week that Zach Thomas, our Director of Economic Development, was named to the Next Gen Under 30 for the state of Oklahoma list. So
That's cool.
we were excited about that for him, and we hazed him a little bit about being the young kid in the office, but I guess that you can do that when you get a little bit older. The Angel Tree at Bank First, this is not really economic development, but some community development is always good news. Over 100 names on it for Grace Living Center. And Mike Wallace is here. He knows usually every year we wind up at the foundation donating a lot of money to try to finish it off. Every name tag was taken off the tree this year,
Great.
a week and a half early. So it was a
Awesome.
good year.
All right, thank you. Good job.
And lastly, in my remarks, I want to note, if you haven't heard, Pastor Harold Phillips is a longtime pastor at River Oaks Christian Church, has passed away. Harold's active in the Community Ministerial Alliance. Harold led the community Easter egg hunt. So if you see his family or you get a chance, you might send a message and share your condolences and let them know that we appreciate all Harold did for our community and I couldn't tell you how many decades of service. But, with that, I will open up to questions, more jokes for those who aren't in attendance.
I do have a question for you.
Well, by the way, Gary's my fact checker. If you ever question my math, Gary's gonna let me know if it's wrong.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but since you did.
I will bring it up.
Oh,
No, you stated that you had reached out to 37 businesses,
Yes,
basically. I just wanted to
Zach
know,
has, not me. Yeah.
I just wanted to know, what is the perception or the feedback from those businesses today versus 12 months ago? Is there a noticeable difference? Is it business as usual?
More, I would say more on especially on the restaurant and retail front, a lot more caution. And I wouldn't say it's doom and gloom, but it's a lot more caution. And I think the feedback we got, or that got last week was probably good feedback. The people are just kind of waiting to see what January and February look like. So no one's in of list. What was it, 37 kind of active and 10? Now that I know my math's wrong, Gary, I'm second guessing.
There were 37 active.
37 active, and I think it was 10 just hard nose, and those for our process for those who aren't aware. We've got the not at this time nose, and we've got the no nose. The not at this time nose get a 6-month follow-up. The no nose get about a year. It was like maybe somebody new there and they don't yell at us.
Is it the do not call me again?
Yeah, it's like, please don't call us again. We actually do have a restaurant that's on that list.
I'm just trying to gauge this.
But yeah, I would say it's not as bad as you would think, but it's not long.
In 6 months from now,
I'm optimistic.
the opportunity for vaccines, things might be.
One of the challenges we continue to have, and Chris knows this, is we don't control a lot of the land in Jenks. So we're at the whim of the property owners, and Councilor Jay's been in a meeting with me on a couple of these, so she's heard the stories. Price of the land, Mike knows this, on the residential side, the price of the land is challenging. And then getting people willing to sell. We had a piece of property that we were working with a guy to buy a month and a half ago. And the seller initially said, well, he doesn't have a price, he wants an offer. So the buyer made an offer. Well, that's insulting. I want a different number.
Wow.
And then ultimately he said he didn't want to sell.
He was born.
3 weeks.
Thanks for playing.
Have you heard anything on the Jenks restaurant? What about Jim?
I haven't heard anything. I talked to somebody who interfaces with him quite a bit, and there's no new news there. There's a new note posted on the window, but it's just the same news that they're closed for the foreseeable future.
I just keep getting asked that.
Yeah, it's a very frequent question. The last decent information I got was he wanted to wait until this whole thing was over.
It's a long time to go without an omelet.
Any offers on Juanita's yet? It's always my question. Just laugh. It was a serious question.
That's a serious answer. Okay, thank you all for your time. Merry Christmas, and Counselor Box, at the Chamber, we're all about good news.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Bristol. Okay, on to other business. I'll put my glasses on, I'm sorry. Consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
Murray,
Yes?
Isbell,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kalen,
Yes.
Bougie.
Yes. Full item 2, request to approve change order number 1 by Dunham Asphalt Service Incorporated, Suffolk, Oklahoma, for modification to repairs based on conditions encountered during construction of the 2nd Street patch and overlay project in the amount of $14,480, resulting in a new contract amount of $114,250, and authorize the mayor to execute the document. Funding for the same is included in the existing FY 20-21 street maintenance, roads and bridges budget account number 53-521-5393. Mr. Boyd.
Just a reminder, what is the appropriate term for this group? Is it
The
councilors?
The chair and members of the
Chair and members of the authority. Okay, thank you. Chair and members of the authority. I want to provide just a brief recap on what this project is. This is the 2nd Street Patch and Overlay Project. Was a project that was to repair and rehabilitate the 2nd Street that is north of K Place, over in this direction. One of the, probably the worst from, I've looked at the different ratings of the streets around town. It's probably the worst street that we have in the city of Jenks. So the repaired sections were to receive a full depth replacement of concrete. So we take out the subgrade, take out the pavement, replace that with 6 inches of rock over filter fabric, and then 2 layers of asphalt. So you'd have 6 inches of rock, 6 inches of asphalt. The areas that would be rehabbed were to have the existing asphalt milled on the top, and then we'd have 2 inches of asphalt go back over that milled surface. So 2nd Street Patch and Overlay Project began on December 2nd. The construction began. And when they started excavating the areas of pavement that were to get the full depth repair, they were able to see the areas that were just going to be milled and overlaid, and realized that pavement condition was much worse than what we originally had estimated. And so in order to provide a good street for the residents that have been dealing with a very bad street for many, many years, maybe over 30 years, what we're asking for is this change order, which what it would essentially do is take out all of the areas that we were going to mill and overlay, and basically take the whole street and basically replace it, reconstruct it. So that $14,480 would be the additional cost it would take to do that.
It sounds like a good price.
Yes, it does.
Well, and it's nice to see that we actually saved some money in some areas on the itemized list. And so then I'm okay with it being over.
Save some money here.
Yep. No, I think that's great. Yeah.
I was very happy with the contractor on this, because basically we were out there looking at this, and I said, really, we wanted to replace this, but what's the cost going to be? And I told him, we've got to stay within the 15% required statutorily on a change order in order to do this, which means we can't have any more change orders, but still. So he worked on and he adjusted, as you can see on the breakdown, unit prices.
Mm-hmm.
He did what he could to get underneath that 15% additional. So I really appreciate that.
That was great.
Do you know how much more excavation they'll have to do? I mean, what other bodies they'll uncover?
Well, in this case, they're getting rid of all of the old.
No, it is the whole thing at 100%.
Yes.
The whole thing.
So the bodies will go.
No, what I was thinking was the possibility of additional funds being required. And if they're gonna go the 100%, then it should go.
It would have to be a separate project at this point, because I think there's roughly $100,000 projects. The statutory limit's 15%, we're at 14 something.
Right.
So we're gonna have them go ahead and finish this project, and if there's anything else that needs to be done in the future, it's gonna have to be a different project.
Are there curbs on this street?
No.
Okay, it's just a flat, even surface.
A very even surface now, or it will be.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
be below,
very even.
below even.
I've been told that this project has been redesigned many, many times, and we're at where we are now. We're finally actually doing something, but the residents have seen that this was supposed to be curb and gutter at one time. And then the funding was changed, and so we're trying to pull it back, and that's why we had that alternating sections, was trying to get the price to a certain area for funding. But once we finally got to see the condition of that pavement, it really does need to be replaced in order for the citizens on that street to have a good street to drive on.
I've actually met with these citizens more than once. And I've also been down there whenever it was heavy rain. And I've listened to what they've gone through with the city over the years. And this is great to take care of them, because they honestly had a real problem. Chris met with me over the summer. This is, if you remember, I told you we had a town hall meeting on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And so that's where Krishna was. So we've all been working with them to make it right. And so Chris has done a great job at putting this together, coming in on the backside of it.
Yeah, one last question, Mr. Cloyd. Very first paragraph. This is before you joined us, but it's been a couple of years since we've seen that assessment, that road condition spreadsheet with all the priorities and the rankings. Are we close to maybe getting a second look at that with an update on it?
Actually, we've actually brought in another software that has gone out, group has gone out and reassessed the streets. And right now, what I'm doing is doing a true up on between the original assessment and this new assessment to see, do we have, is it seeing the same thing, or are there wild differences, and why do we have those differences? So I'm kind of validating the data right now on that reassessment.
But I think that'd be something we could see again. A couple months out.
We could do that probably in the next month. Yeah, but let me work on.
It's not a priority. It's just, it was a good document, and just one that we haven't seen in a while. So.
Wasn't that included in our paperwork, which showed which we had funding for and which we didn't when we were looking at the bond issue? Is that the same?
Goes along with the capital improvement plan. And, we had 113 projects, and what the document Chris is talking about feeds into the capital improvement plan.
Well, I remember that document, but this was an Excel spreadsheet where you had every single row.
That's what I'm saying, is that document takes the worst from that, and it goes into the capital improvement. And I think that what Chris is saying is he's working on a new version of it that we should have available to council in the next year or two.
Great.
We hope to have the capital improvement list that we've kind of edited since the last time it was distributed, might have been a year ago. And that's been edited, and I think that'll be ready to be provided to council within the next month.
Yeah, I think that's something we might need to kind of look at more often, maybe quarterly, just to see, what's changed.
It does look a lot.
Yeah, I think it was like.
Well, I think the pace of construction, the quarterly might
is
be
too
a little
often.
soon, yeah,
Okay.
because construction projects are a little slow, and it might be more of it's still the same thing.
Okay.
But
I
we
understand.
can talk about that.
This road update we get, a lot of times it's still the same thing. So,
Yeah, a lot of it we had it, wasn't it on the list where what was funded?
right, we really liked that. So as new funds come in and things, that was really, really helpful with prioritizing, not just for the bond, but in general. So
Something I'm still trying to piece together right now. What projects do we have? What is funded by what?
well, he should show you that spreadsheet.
He has.
Okay.
He has. It's trying to get it up here.
Okay.
It is first time.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve item number 3.
Murray,
Yes.
Isabel,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Caitlin,
Yes.
OJ.
Yes. Okay, any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Murray,
All right, you want
Yes.
these back?
Isabel,
You want all these back?
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin,
Yes.
OJ.
Yes.
Sorry, I just took a big gulp of water.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job, Donna. Thank you.